Hey, y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So I know me and Dr. Veronika Wright just had a conversation recently, but kind of simultaneous to when we were recording that conversation, two relatively big news articles from Mercedes-Benz and from One, or Our Next Energy, working with the Tesla, came out. And so I thought we would do like a little addendum that would go along with the last video. Anyway, if you haven't seen the last video, I will definitely put a link to it in the corner, and also, of course, at the end of this video, and it will be in the description. And of course, you should buy her awesome book, which is The Drive to Electric. So anyway, welcome back, Veronika. Thank you so much for joining us yet again in very short order.
Very happy to do that.
Cool.
Hey, everybody again.
Yeah. So anyway, the two I guess big announcements were, number one, from One, which is that they basically put, I think it's 207 kilowatts exactly, but about a 200 kilowatt battery pack into the same size battery compartment that the Model S, which is about 103 kilowatt hours. So it's basically, they almost exactly doubled the amount of kilowatt hours inside the same amount of space. And then they drove 1,200 kilometers or 752 miles on one charge, which is amazing. And then at CES, just a couple of days ago, Mercedes announced that they have a real world, that's what they're saying, a 1,000 kilometer or 621 miles, something like that, whatever, 1,000 kilometers of real world range in their concept car, the EQXX. So I think we were talking right before I started recording this about how these articles often have so much hype in them. So maybe we could start with that, and then we could actually talk about the facts and why this could matter.
Sure. You know, these big announcements, I can see them almost every day, and I'm getting so many questions from everybody all the time about these new things out there. So, which is also actually the reason I wrote this book, you know, to have consistent facts of people that we trust and talk in a normal way and not hype everything. So sometimes I'm honestly having a hard time reading some of these articles because I think it sometimes gives the wrong impression, but I'm really happy to talk to you about it, talk about some facts. I don't know everything either, of course. I can also just guess in some cases, but I'm happy to discuss the concepts, what could be the reason they are sharing that right now, and what is fact and what is fiction.
Cool. So yeah, I guess, I mean, we can start with, which one do you want to start with? The Mercedes announcement?
The Mercedes.
The Mercedes one? Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the EQXX. I don't know about the XX part, but I guess that's because it's a concept car, but anyway.
Yes, as far as I read it, it's a concept car, and they are not planning right now to put that car into production, which I think is a good idea because overall, yes, it's a very efficient concept. But it has a very low performance, and I don't see at the moment the right customers to buy a car like that. But definitely, you know, there are technology concepts in there that some parts they will reuse in some of their future production cars. I mean, overall, everybody, I guess, if you look at the car, you see it's very aerodynamically efficient. So this is definitely a part which is totally not related to the electric system. So this could be, it's independent of the propulsion system. They could do the same thing with a gas car, of course.
Did you notice that there's actually I guess the back end of the car actually kind of opens up. So it's almost like a reverse spoiler, I think, that they open up if it's traveling fast. So interesting.
It's really interesting to see that. And I also recently looked up this drag coefficient. You know, they say it's around 0.17 for this car. A standard would be 0.2, 0.3. I looked it up for the Jeep.
Oh gosh, the 1999 Jeep, yeah. That's basically just driving a box through the road.
Yes, it's not very efficient in terms of aerodynamics. It's 0.45.
Wow. And if I'm remembering, it's like the square. There's a squared value in there, right? So it's not a linear relationship between the coefficient of drag and how much energy you're using. So yeah, so if you use just a little bit more, because it's a squared relationship, it goes up drastically in terms of the energy. So, yes. But 0.17 is remarkable. I mean, Tesla's got I think, or maybe Lucid now has the smallest coefficient of drag of a production car, but it's still around 2. So 0.17 is incredible.
Yeah. So I guess that's the first part, and it's a nice design. Who knows if it's structurally feasible? You know, surviving some crash tests and things like this.
Right.
But so this is one of the first things I would say that is interesting. And then, of course, the whole powertrain concept. They investigated a lot how to optimize the interaction between battery, motor, and inverter to increase the overall efficiency.
Right. And yeah, I noticed that they, for one thing, they only have a single 201 horsepower motor, which obviously is very underpowered. I believe it says it can run from 0 to 62 or 100 kilometers an hour in 7 seconds. So, so that's, again, like you're saying, probably a Mercedes customer is not going to be super satisfied with that number. So in the real world, they would probably have to increase that by having 2 motors or a bigger motor or something like that. Yeah. So,
yes,
so
and I guess
okay.
what they are planning. The interesting thing, starting with the motor, is that so their concept is, to maximize power in general. You can either go up with the current or go up with the voltage. And what they're doing is go up with the voltage, as others are doing as well.
Right.
And if you go up with the voltage, I think around 900 volts and more, it means you have a lower current coming to the batteries. And by doing that, batteries get less warm. Lower current means less heat and also less damage to the batteries. And this, for them and their concept, means that air cooled or passively air cooled battery system is enough for them. And that
seems to be the biggest in terms of the battery part. I think they've got a new chemistry, but that air cooling is remarkable, because every electric car on the road right now, a production car, uses liquid cooling, right? It uses it cycles some sort of fluid through the batteries.
There is the Nissan Leaf. There is the Nissan Leaf.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
But most of them use a liquid cooling system. And I think it's a good idea to do that, especially if you consider also, different geographical locations. I'm really wondering how a concept like that deals with also cold temperatures, because you have no way to heat up the batteries.
Right. Oh, that's true, because part of the thermal management system, of course, is to heat the batteries as well as to cool them. So that I hadn't thought about that. But also, I mean, I would think that the efficiency of a car like that, obviously it happens anyway, but if you have Southern Florida, if you're driving around in Miami in the summertime, it might be very difficult for it to cool the batteries if it's very hot and humid, so that there's not a great deal of cooling that you can do through air. So.
Yes. But overall, I guess also geographically speaking, I would be concerned more about the lower temperatures.
Right.
But it would be a good car for Tuscany. Where you have
it's a very limited market. It's like Southern California and Tuscany.
Okay, but so let's talk a little more about the battery. So they have obviously a very high energy density.
Right.
Do we have the number? It's 200 watt hours per kilogram, I think.
Right. And I think what they got, I think their efficiency is 4.2 or 4.3 miles per kilowatt hour. And for reference, a Tesla, the models are a little different, but I think the Teslas are about 3 miles per kilowatt hour. So that efficiency means, of course, with the same size battery, that you can go further too. So, yeah.
Yes. So, and this is, I think it is the pack level energy density. So in order to understand that, we can first start with the cell, right? One individual cell. And there they have something not new, but which is not state of the art right now. They changed the anode of the cell, which is typically graphite, by adding a little bit of silicon, and which was done before. But what it means if you add silicon is you can bind more lithium ions. And this is how you increase the energy density. The problem is, as you can imagine, if you can bind more lithium ions, you also kind of grow the system mechanically. So there is a volumetric expansion with these cells going on during charging and discharging. You have mechanical expansion of around 15%, depending on how much silicon you put in there. So that's a challenge.
Right. And just again, I'll use the simple AA battery, but if you imagine this cell, this has got a hard container. And if this grew 15% as it charged and then shrunk, that could cause significant problems. It could rupture, bad things could happen. So yeah. I assume that there's I assume that technically it's a very challenging thing to deal with, expansion and contraction.
Yes, and I don't think they're using cylindrical cells, but more.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
was just using that as an example, but so they
Yes.
probably are using something like a pouch or something that has more
Yeah.
flexibility.
And what they then probably have to do, and I'm coming back to this
Right.
slice here, they need to put some material between the cells that kind of compensates for this volume expansion. This is how they then actually lose energy density again. But okay.
Oh, that's true, because you then have to have gaps between each of the panels.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So, and I didn't see any kind of lifetime tests on these cells yet. I think they have these cells very, very prototype level, and also others do. Yeah, and so this would be the cell level energy density, and then you can do a lot of things when going to the pack. I think we discussed it also last time. There is now this cell to pack approach, so kind of skipping the individual modules and kind of saving space and material by doing so.
Right.
This is what they did. And also they did something maybe special with the power electronics. So they call this the one box, where all the power electronics is in one thing, in one location. Probably they really reduced the number of sensors, I can imagine. They could reduce the thickness of the cables because they go with the low current.
Right.
So I guess this is some part. And then, as we discussed earlier, the cooling system. If they don't go with the liquid cooling system, they can also increase the energy density on the pack level.
Right. I guess, yeah, because it takes up some space, but also it adds weight, of course, to run fluid through there. And I assume it takes energy to circulate the fluid and have a radiator that then dissipates the heat or adds heat to it. So, so fascinating. So do you want to turn to our next energy drive and talk about that? Yeah, because weirdly enough, they're related in a lot of ways in terms of the battery systems and everything. So yeah, so what do you think about that one?
And they're kind of close to me. They're located in Michigan.
Right, I noticed that, and their test was actually, I believe, done driving up and down Michigan. So it was a real world test, which is actually very cool. Because if people don't know, the EPA tests that they do are on kind of a treadmill. So the car, if it says 300 miles, it's never going to actually get that in the real world. So the fact that they got 1,200 kilometers or 750 miles is very impressive because it's real world.
Yes, but honestly, I was very, very confused by the articles that are out there right now, like super contradicting. And you're like, what is actually really going on? Right. If you go to their website and you want to understand their vision, what they're doing is they're combining different chemistries into one pack, like a lower energy density one, like the LFP cathode chemistry, and they are combining this with a high energy density. And they are actually working on a new battery chemistry like NMC, where they have more manganese in there than others. Okay, so this is a little bit of the idea, the vision to combine this. It's also done by others. So for example, CATL, the new sodium ion batteries, they want to do this combination of LFP with this. So the concept, I think it's a really good idea because you have some of the cells that can take energy very fast, but over a very long time. And then you have some cells, if you press the accelerator pedal and need constant, very fast energy, then they can cover that.
Okay.
So this is the overall idea, and I think this is their concept. And now if we look at the article, what they did with the Tesla is similar, but not what they want to do in the end. So right now, I think they're using cells that exist already. They package this together, and the way they could really get this very high energy density is, I think they just put cell next to cell next to cell, not considering any kind of safety mechanical measures, I believe. Okay. So if you look at these videos and pictures, you see really cells. It's just, if you take an Amazon box and arrange the cells in there and just nothing else.
Right.
So this is what I see from these articles.
Okay. So if you were going to use this in the real world, probably NHTSA or some regulatory body would not approve of it because they would say the thermal runaway potential is very, very high.
I don't know the details, but right now it would look like there is not so many safety measures, but yeah, it's a little bit hard to tell from the outside.
It was interesting when you were talking about the two different chemistries of the batteries. it made me think, because there was a period of time, and it was a couple of years ago now, but everyone was talking about ultra capacitors, and that those would be, so you would charge those and they could charge quickly, and then they would distribute more slowly to the regular batteries, but then they could also deliver a huge amount of energy, but they have a very low energy density, right? That's the kind of main problem with ultra capacitors.
The problem with using ultracapacitors only in a car is that they can't hold the energy very long.
Okay.
And this is why you need the batteries. But it's very nice that you start talking about that, because it's really the same idea, the same concept. And one of the people in my book, they started a startup called Avevai, where they are combining batteries with supercapacitors, and they really can increase the overall efficiency a lot. And they show this especially regarding regenerative braking.
Right.
If you brake in an electric car, the energy that you produce through braking goes back into the motor, and this energy goes back into the battery. The problem with some of the battery chemistries is they can take up all of this energy so fast.
Right.
So some of the energy is lost. But if you have supercapacitor that can do that, you can take up this energy, then give it back to the batteries. And really, we're talking about, I think, 20% increase in efficiency if you do a system like this. And this is similar to what one is doing in Michigan.
Okay. Yeah. So they're using two different battery chemistries, but effectively it's the same thing. That was what I had thought about with the, you wouldn't really need that many supercapacitors or whatever in between, just because I noticed, like, if anybody who drives a Tesla, and probably other cars, I remember the Prius did it too, but it shows you when it will stop regenerating. Like if you press the brake too hard, it can't take up that much energy that quickly. And so then it goes to a regular braking system. So you have to always try to be very, very careful with the braking to get the maximum back. But the ultra capacitors, supercapacitors would be able to deal with that sort of thing. And potentially this multiple chemistry would help with that too, I guess. Okay. And so they had, I think Aries is the one they were talking about as the one that they are actually developing for release, which is mostly LFP. And then the Gemini or whatever is the one that they did. So that really, because one of the things that completely confused me about this was they said, hey, we put 207 kilowatt hours in exactly the same size container that the Model S only has a 103 kilowatt hour battery pack. And I thought, whoa, it's not like technology has come that far. How did they do that? But it makes sense if they've kind of just removed all the safety mechanisms. And of course, it's the Model S is a relatively old design. So it's got the whole modules, and each of those takes up space. So I guess there is some efficiency with going with a more modern approach.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we've got the EQXX. We've got one with its battery packs. When will these actually have an effect on us consumers? Like, when can we just go to the store, go to the auto dealership or online and purchase one of these ourselves?
Yeah, well, as I said, I don't think that there is a lot of people that would be interested in this type of Mercedes, like completely this design, but part of that they will take to production. The battery cell chemistry is in a prototype phase. This will take years and years until it's really kind of a state of the art. We have parallel battery technology evolving. So, but some of the concepts are kind of nice to see and easy, or fairly easy to take into new production concepts, and also for other OEMs. So it's a little bit hard to say. For one, I think they want to start the battery cell production or development in 2023, which then also means they need a certain time to ramp up. So a little bit further along the ways. But it's, always nice to see concepts like that. Also for the Mercedes, what we didn't talk about is that they have the solar roof.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that entirely, but they do. Yeah. I don't know that I saw a number on that. They don't have an actual maximum amount of miles per day or kilometers per day, do they? I
did see something about in a very, very ideal condition, which means probably the sunlight needs to be perpendicular to the solar roof for 24 hours.
So the sun just stays overhead all day.
Exactly. Then you would gain 25 kilometers a day. Good. So it's not substantial, but maybe why not? But you know, you need a huge surface area really
Right.
um, to be very efficient with solar for cars. So I'm not so sure if solar roofs are for this type of car so
Right.
interesting.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing that seems to be an exception to that would be the Cybertruck, because number one, it's just huge. But that back rollout thing, if it had some sort of solar panels, because people are going to take it camping. And
Yes,
so
that's a different
it
story.
could sit there while you're camping, and it could actually charge up a significant amount over a couple of days. So that does seem to be the one case where it would make some sense. But yeah, just average. And then there's is it Aptera that's got the solar, but they've got, that tiny little three-wheel vehicle. And in there, you can actually add enough range that you can do daily driving on it. But for a big, massive car like this, it's
Yeah,
who knows
yeah,
if that will actually ever make it into production, right? Because I mean, 25
exactly.
kilometers is not that much
Yeah.
range. So, okay. I'm speaking of that, I just thought of this. I don't know, you probably heard about that horrible traffic jam that happened in Virginia. And a couple of days ago, people got, oh gosh, well, people were stuck. It got cold. It snowed on I-95, which is a terrible road anyway. I've been on that exact stretch of road before, and I hate it in the best conditions. But anyway, they got stuck from like 12 to 24 hours in the cold. And of course, there have now been articles about how if everyone was driving an electric vehicle, it would have been terrible for us. And everyone would have lost their battery power, and everyone would have, so the car. Anyway, I don't think that that's true, but again, I'm not a battery expert. But I don't know. That would be one place where I could see the EQXX solar roof actually being valuable, because if it was gaining some energy and you ran the heater, hopefully it would balance out a little bit. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that? Again, I'm just asking you this out of the blue. If you don't, that's fine. But
It's a question. I guess I didn't get the question. Is it about kind of low temperatures and
right. The idea was, if they were electric cars as opposed to gas cars that were on the road there, they all would have just drained their batteries and everyone would have been stuck forever, and it would have been a zombie apocalypse. Something horrible would have happened. But of course, gas cars run out of gas too. So I personally don't see why there's a particular difference between the two. But I don't know if you had any thoughts about that, or if it's just sort of a silly point anyway.
I do not. I didn't look into this, but it is true that batteries don't feel very comfortable at very low temperatures, but it doesn't mean that they don't function at all and are empty immediately.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And as far as I understand it, especially, go ahead. Good.
No, we're having like minus 70 degrees Celsius today outside. And, for the Jeep, definitely we will have a heating system for the battery cells.
Right. Okay. Right. Which is, again, what you were saying, that cold weather. And it's something I just don't think about as a naive battery person, but cold is actually in a lot of ways much worse than heat is, because you can reject the heat much more easily with a cooling system.
Yeah, like the battery is like a human being, likes to be around room temperature.
Right. So we've made our battery chemistries just like us. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this is actually amazingly helpful for me, and I hope everybody who's watching. And I really appreciate you taking the time again on a Friday to come and talk to us again. So definitely don't forget Electrified Veronika YouTube channel, and you are working on that electrified Jeep. So there you go. And of course, the book, I think you got it. So yes, The Drive to Electric, it's amazing. I've been reading a little bit every evening as I go to sleep, and it's really fascinating, like really
Good night stories, right?
There you go. I don't know. I tend to read. I'm enjoying it immensely. I really, really like the stories, and I really like getting a global perspective on what's going on. So definitely look on Amazon. I've got all of that information in the description, so you can check it out. And again, thank you so much for coming on and for talking about the Mercedes and the Tesla with the one battery in it. I appreciate it.
No problem. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll talk to you later.